Good evening, Blackwood Insomniacs. It's your local ghost storyteller here, Allie Clifford. If you're still awake, you're in the right place. Last week was Rush Week, and it was so much fun. All the sorority houses looked amazing, everything decorated and themed around different time periods. I know I've been hating on Delta Theta Rho, but their sorority house looked amazing. Of course, I had to go check it out with Harper, because she insisted we needed to go. And in return, she came with me to all the other houses. Just a heads up, there was one house that me and Harper really liked. Hopefully little Miss Harper doesn't leave me alone and go to the Delta Theta Rho house. Regardless, at their sorority house, they welcomed us in. We had drinks, and then they sent us to a room where we had to dress up in all Bridgerton wear. They had these beautiful dresses and gowns we could try on, choose the ones we liked, and of course look for our size. Then we walked through their house, which was really beautiful. It looked like something straight out of Bridgerton. We played games and had snacks and talked to each other. It was actually really fun and amazing. I know some of those girls recognized me and gave me a little side eye. What was she doing there? Either way, it was truly amazing. And of course, all the other sorority houses did the same phenomenal job. The houses looked amazing. The girls there are so friendly and sweet, and they also had games and their own little themes going on at each house. It was all amazing, and I really enjoyed it. I'm very curious to know where I'll end up, because that's obviously not the end. We're going to do a couple more events with all the sorority houses, and then we'll wait for our invitation. I'll see where I end up, and we'll see where little Miss Harper ends up. Also, a new announcement and note for all Blackwood Insomniacs: Marcus Evans is no longer our friend. He is disowned, and we will no longer tolerate or speak of him. If you're wondering why he came into our room very excitedly with a really old-looking console and said he was convinced he'd found the console we talked about a few episodes ago, the old console, the story says, eats your soul. It had no name on it. It was really old and yellow, and he was very convincing that he believed this was the console from that story. Of course, Harper wanted to play the game by all means and exactly as the story described. It plugged easily into this old TV he brought with him. The screen only gave one option: continue. We selected continue, and there it was, a little pixelated character surrounded by trees, and you could only move around, everything looking pretty much the same, no matter which way you went. I sat there nervously watching Harper play, but after a while I thought, this is just an old game. Eventually, small figures started coming into view from behind the trees, and they started following our character. That's when me and Harper started freaking out a little, getting nervous. She tried to move her character faster, but that didn't work. The figures kept getting closer and closer, and then all of a sudden, a freaking jump scare, a monster screaming right in our faces. Marcus started laughing, rolling on the floor. Turns out he'd had one of his tech buddies build a little game where you control the character, and after a set amount of time, a jump scare pops up. He built it into a genuinely old console, stripped the name off, and roughed it up to look the part. So, Marcus Evans, you are no longer our friend. Any future communications can be directed to my hand. While we're on the topic of Mr. Evans, I did tell you all last week that I'd ask him about the knocking in the wall at his frat house, since he's in Delta Phi Mu. He confirmed there is, in fact, a knocking sound coming from the wall by the big fireplace. He thinks it's just something structural. He believes the frat brothers cooked up a very elaborate story to explain it and scare the new members, because the noise is sometimes perfectly timed. A lot of his frat brothers have stories about the knocking happening at just the right moment, and they can't explain it. He says he thinks it's pure coincidence, and that it's all in everyone's heads. That said, let's see what the comments said about last week's episode. A lot of the local listeners and students who grew up in Ravenbrook know this story very well. Some of the guys said it's one of the reasons they never even considered that frat house, so I'm apparently not the only one who hears a story and decides I'm not going there. Well, in my case, sorority house. The Girl in the Wall is genuinely a legendary story for Ravenbrook and the students who live here. Some of you pointed out that if The Body in the Wall was from the 1800s and jazz didn't become popular until the 1900s, she wouldn't have heard it in her lifetime. So why does it bother her so much? That comment sparked a whole new wave of theories. Is it something about jazz that reminds her of her final moments? Or does it mean she was kept somewhere by someone until she eventually died and was only sealed in the wall afterward? There's also only so many times a year the campus is nearly empty, so how do you brick up a wall in a communal house without anyone noticing unless more than one person was involved? One story keeps coming up from a few of you that there was a party at the frat house where one of the members wanted to prove the knocking was a real ghost event. They played jazz as loud as it would go, and the knocking got so aggressive that some of the bricks around the fireplace actually started coming loose. Alex would have loved to see that happen. Speaking of Alex, you guys have been asking why I'm not giving updates on him, and it's because, unfortunately, there's no update to give. He's in the best possible care, and the doctors are very happy with his vitals and everything. He should wake up any moment now. He just hasn't yet. Okay, that's enough of the comments. Let's get on to this week's story. I skimmed through the stories because I wanted something about sororities or frats, since it's rush week and everyone's busy with events. That's also why Harper's been MIA. Lately, she's hardly ever here. This week's story is about a sorority house massacre. My true crime self jumped at this one, so let's get into it. If you've ever stood on the top floor of the school library and looked out over the forest and campus, you might have noticed, near the edge, where the trees have started reclaiming their ground, a few rooftops sticking out. They look neglected, and part of one has fallen through, exposing the inside of the house. These houses were some of the first buildings built at Blackwood, and just like the main building, they were eventually abandoned and left to nature. They were frat houses and sorority houses, built far out from campus at the time, because the school anticipated the campus would grow larger around them. So these houses were somewhat remote, and that's how the massacre happened without anyone hearing a thing. The massacre was discovered when classmates and friends started wondering where all the girls from this sorority house had gone. I'm going to take a wild guess and say this was the Delta Theta Rho house, and it's not because I'm hating on them, it's because they were the first sorority house at Blackwood. I learned that during rush week. A few students went over to the house, and when they arrived, the door was standing open. Just from the doorway, they could tell something terrible had happened inside. They ran for help, and the police were called. The sorority had 12 girls living in it. Their house mother lived in a separate house only a few feet away with her family. Inside, police found the bodies of the sorority girls scattered throughout the house, all murdered. One girl was reported missing. Her body wasn't found in the house, around the property, or anywhere in the forest. The police tried to solve it as quickly as they could because the savage, brutal nature of the crime had thrown the school and the town into chaos. Who did this? How does something like this happen in a place like Ravenbrook, where everyone knew everyone? People were terrified, and suspicion quickly landed on the students who'd come from other towns and countries, outsiders. One of them surely had to be the killer. The police shut that rumor down fast, since the girls living in the house were both from Ravenbrook and from out of town, and there was still the matter of the missing girl. Their working theory was that a drifter had gotten lost in the forest, stumbled onto the sorority house, killed the girls, and taken one with him. But no one believed that. How does one person overpower an entire house full of people, with the house mother and her family only feet away and hearing nothing? The house mother came under suspicion herself. According to friends who'd walked some of the girls home on Monday evening, everything had looked normal, and then 3 days passed without anyone seeing any of the girls. Checking in on them daily was supposedly her job, but her excuse was that her child had been sick and she'd been going back and forth to the doctor in town. That only deepened the suspicion, since she also claimed she'd been up most of those nights tending to her little one and hadn't heard anything. There were so many rumors and theories fueling a terrified town. Who was the killer, and when would they strike again? But all of that stopped when the police announced the most puzzling theory yet, and it wasn't purely theoretical this time because it was built on actual evidence. According to the coroner, the girls died sometime between Monday evening, when they were last seen alive, and the following day. Not all at once, but not far apart either. It started with 3 girls poisoned and killed at the dining table. 2 more were found locked inside a closet. 2 others were found in a locked bathroom on the ground floor. 1 girl was found in her own closet, another tied to a chair, and 1 in her bed. The last body was found by the back door in the kitchen. That accounted for 11 girls, with the 12th still missing. Except for the 3 girls poisoned at the table, every other victim had been stabbed to death. That was the order in which the coroner believed they died. The next piece of evidence was even stranger. There had been no break-in. No one had forced their way into the house. That's when the drifter theory started to fall apart. But it wasn't just the lack of forced entry. The evidence also showed that every murder had been carried out by someone who was also among the murdered. The fingerprints on the bottle that held the poison matched one of the girls who was later stabbed to death. The fingerprints on the murder weapons belonged to other girls who lived in the house, girls who were also killed. There were no unexplained prints anywhere in the house that didn't belong there, and the scene had clearly been left untouched, no cleanup. If the killer had been an outsider, there should have been evidence of them somewhere. All the evidence pointed to the girls having killed each other. But that didn't explain the missing girl. Did she escape? If so, why didn't she call for help? Was she injured and lying somewhere in the forest, still undiscovered? But there was no blood found outside the house. She had simply vanished. Or had she? A dress was found, believed to belong to the missing girl, full of stab marks and soaked in blood. Whoever had been wearing it would not have survived, and every other girl in the house had been found fully dressed, which left only her. There was one more piece of evidence the police couldn't place, a crumpled letter dated the weekend before the massacre. It read, "You all knew and did nothing." That was it. The case was closed. Police concluded the girls had turned on each other and that they must have done something to the missing girl in the process. The house was abandoned, along with the houses around it. No one wanted to live out there, isolated from the school and town. New houses were built closer to campus, ones that came with house mothers and proper security.
Wow, what a mystery!
Hey, when did you come in?
Around the part where you talked about how the house was found?
I didn't even hear you come in. How was the volunteer work with Delta Theta Rho? Actually, you know what? Don't tell me now. Let me wrap this up. Well, guys, who do you think did it? Was it the house mother with the candlestick in the dining room? Was it the missing girl? And if so, where did she go? Or was she missing a lot longer than the police realized? Who wrote that letter and what did they mean by it? Do you think this is a real story or just another Blackwood legend told to explain an abandoned building in the woods? Let me know in the comments and let me know which sorority or frat you're hoping to get an invitation from next week. That's enough from me, Blackwood Insomniacs. I hope you're all in dreamland by now. This is Allie. Good night, Alex.